So we've just been given yet another piece of the puzzle when it comes to Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. We've been given yet another teaser, and it does seem like Mob are ramping up the amount of content that they're pumping out lately, which makes me think that we're getting much closer to the release date of Chapter 3. We maybe even have some hints towards that, but there's also plenty of things I want to talk about in today's latest teaser, including some stuff that you definitely haven't thought about, so let's get into it. So if you've missed the latest teaser from Mob, we got this image posted today across Discord and Twitter. Now if you're not on Twitter, which I wouldn't blame you, you might have missed this image, so I'm going to go through it and break it down. It seems like a fairly simple image. It's just a computer screen with the Playtime Co logo, a bunch of the characters, a couple of files, and then this gas in the background. Now, there are some obvious things in this image and there are some far less obvious things. I'm going to cover both of those, and then I'm also going to go into a mini theory that I have, because this image has given me a little bit more evidence to something that I've been thinking about for a little while now. So the first thing I want to point out is the obvious. If you increase the brightness, this is something that Mob have done plenty of times now. They've hidden things in the background, especially in the darker corners of their images. If you increase the brightness, mess around with the saturation, the color and all that kind of stuff, you can see two very obvious things. First of all, you can see the 3 on the right hand side, which in my mind, this very simply just says this is part of Chapter 3. A lot of people are speculating that this is the beginning of a new ARG, and I actually do agree with that. I'm going to come on to that in a minute, but I think this 3 here is another clue. We actually got something like this in Chapter 2, or just before Chapter 2, if you remember. So I think this is a pretty solid hint that this is going to be related to Chapter 3. Now, interestingly, you can see the red gas here again. We've talked about this so many times now, I'm not going to repeat myself. We know that the gas is going to be something very important for Chapter 3. We know that the gas mask exists, and we've seen this gas in several thumbnails now, so we know that this is going to be important. But we can also see on the left hand side, you can see this, which is definitely some sort of face. Now, my first instinct is that this is Huggy, or it could be Kissy, but it looks like Huggy to me. It looks like you can see the mouth here with the little curve to the lips. Remember, Huggy has that little weirdly shaped mouth, and it definitely looks like Huggy to me. Now, it could be somebody else, but I actually think there is just a lot to suggest that this is Huggy, and I actually think that there's another reason why this is put here, and that's what I'm going to talk about once we've gone through all the little details in this image. So we have another couple of things. We have the CCTV network here, which I think this is what this is hinting. I think this entire image is hinting that the CCTV network is going to come back. If you missed my old videos on those, there used to be an ARG in between Chapter 1 and 2 where we got this security feed. Now, the security feed was 3 different cameras, and over time they changed. First of all, we randomly saw this cat bee that appeared, and then the cat bee got dragged off. Then we saw Mommy Longlegs' hand, but this was before Mommy Longlegs was announced, so I actually thought it was a grab pack hand. That is something that I got wrong. But we later realized that that was Mommy Longlegs' hand, and that was before Mommy Longlegs was announced, before we got the hints to Mommy Longlegs, and then we got the trailer showing her off completely. So at this time, this ARG was building up the tension and the mystery for Mommy Longlegs, who ended up being the main antagonist of Chapter 2, unless you count Poppy. But then we have this similar thing going on now. We have lots of little ARGs. We've had the VHS tapes that have been teasing something for Chapter 3, and I do believe that this image is the next phase of those teasers, and I do think that there's a good potential here that this is going to be setting up the next villain. Now, what makes that point really interesting is, again, we see this Huggy here in the fog. It seems like a hidden image, but it's not really that hidden, but it's this weird image of Huggy that we keep seeing everywhere. Now, if you saw my last couple of videos, I've made it very clear that one of my biggest predictions of Chapter 3 is that Huggy is going to come back. If he doesn't come back in Chapter 3, I definitely think he's going to come back at some point in the game. But I do think there's a good chance that we're going to see him in Chapter 3, especially now that we have seen him so many times. It's getting a little bit weird now. Now, of course, we had the new render lately, which could just be a new render, but we have this hidden Huggy. We also have a Huggy hidden in Project Playtime, possibly even 2. There's this silhouette, which is definitely Huggy, which is there on the TV screen in the viewing room. But then also you can see this very quick clip of Huggy here again, which looks like a Huggy to me anyway, especially if you squish it down. So it seems like there are Huggies being shown everywhere. And again, if you look at the evidence from Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, it definitely looks like Huggy is still around. But what makes this even more interesting, something that I have not really considered up until now, is that there's been a weird theme. There's been a weird theme with all of the teasers, with all of the latest things, including the Bunzo comics, of eyes. Now, The reason why I started thinking about this, and this comes from Sheep Rampage, so thank you to you, is because we got this message in the Discord. Now, I actually didn't see this. I don't pay massive attention to the Poppy Playtime Discord. I just don't have time. But Sheep Rampage posted this clip of Tobias saying, "There is a thing that you're not quite seeing in bold. You've used it for quite a while. They've been disconnected, but now seems like the power is back on. Is this related to your eyes?" Again, eyes in bold. Now, my first instinct was that this is showing us, or this is hinting that the CCTV network is going to come back. And I still think that's true. I do think that the CCTV network is going to come back, and I think we're going to get a little bit more content on there, because that was actually a really fun way to tease Mommy Longlegs, and I think they're going to do something similar for chapter 3. I'm expecting, if we get the CCTV back though, I'm expecting that we are going to see something a bit more dark and sinister this time. Now, I'll leave a link down in the description below. Keep an eye out on that, because it was taken down after chapter 2, but then it seems to have been brought back up, and it's just static at the moment, so who knows. But what's really interesting about this is the seeing and the eyes. Now, I did a little thinking about this, and there's been a lot of things about eyes throughout the history of Poppy Playtime. All the way back in chapter 1, remember there was the debate about Huggy's eyes. Some people thought they saw human eyes in there, and then a lot of people said, no, it's just a reflection of the podium. While I went back and looked at that now, that graphically has been increased, and it's still very difficult to see whether it is actually eyes or whether it's the podium. I am leaning towards that it's a reflection of the podium, but it's still a creepy detail. But what makes this even weirder is that we've had so many little hints lately about eyes. And in fact, no one seems to be talking about it. I didn't even think about it until today. There are so many little hints about eyes, and even chapter 1 with the latest update has changed some eyes. So let me explain what I'm talking about. We had the Bunzo comic, and Bunzo fell down the hole. He got trapped. It was very sad. Everyone's very sad about it. But right at the end of that comic, you can see that Bunzo's eyes are missing. And I've talked about this before. It seems very odd. You know, why are his eyes gone? Like, did somebody take them? I even theorized that maybe 1006 took them. Now, Bunzo's eyes being gone is very interesting, because the idea that there could be a bird enemy like Just Jord has been talking about could have taken his eyes. But okay, so Bunzo's eyes are gone. Well, look at this new image. This image does look like Huggy Wuggy, but it also looks kind of like the eyes are gone. All right, maybe just a coincidence. Well, go back to chapter 1. Do you remember the cursed Huggy? One of the reasons why the cursed Huggy looks so sinister and different to all the others is, you guessed it, he's missing his eyes. Okay, so that's 3 people that are missing their eyes now. But also, interestingly now, with the chapter 1 update, something that I didn't notice is that all of the other mini Huggies, which are 100% moving, by the way, I don't understand how some people can't see that they're moving. They're definitely moving. Anyway, these mini Huggies also seem to have their eyes slightly coming out of their sockets, like you can see behind, and I don't remember if you ever could before, but their eyes definitely seem like they're coming out of their sockets. So it seems like something is going around taking people's eyes, and there's a good chance that this could be the chapter 3 antagonist. For some reason, the chapter 3 antagonist has an obsession with eyes and is taking people's eyes. Now again, this could be some evidence towards Jord's theory that this is going to be a bird enemy, because we know like birds do sometimes do this. They do pluck eyes out, especially, you know, the carrion birds. It's a very common thing that you see in movies and things, eyes being taken out by birds. So this could be another hint that there is a bird going around the factory taking people's eyes out, which would be creepy, but definitely something about eyes. Now, like I said, this could just be a hint that the CCTV is coming back, because when you watch CCTV, that's all you can do with it, you know, watch it with your eyes. So maybe that's what they're talking about. But I also think that there's a subtle little hint here. Now, this could even go further, because if you look at this image that's on the screen in this latest teaser, if you look at everybody's eyes, there are a couple of little hints. For example, both Huggy and Kissy have kind of looks like they have no eyes, but they have these very dark, vacant eyes. If you look at both Poppy, Mommy, Bron, and maybe Catbee, you can see that they have a little bit more life to them. Even PJ Pugapilla's eyes look more alive than Huggy's do here. It's kind of a weird one, but if you look at all these people that have color in their eyes, they seem to be the people that talk. We know that Mommy can talk, we know that Poppy can talk, and we haven't met Bron yet, so we don't know if Bron can talk. But it seems like the ones that can talk have more color, more detail added to their eyes than the ones that can't talk. So maybe that's just a complete coincidence. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but that could be something to do with it. There's also the idea that here Catbee does look kind of like they're crying, which is another Another interesting thing, because remember in chapter 2, Catby seemed to be warning us. Catby, the cutout, the poster, was telling us to get out of here. We need to get out of here. So it seems like Catby might be a little bit more privy to things than we first thought. Again, we haven't really met a living Catby yet, so there's a good chance that we're going to meet one in maybe chapter 3. It kind of makes sense that would be where we would meet a living Catby, because chapter 3 being the play care, where the younger orphans were, it kind of makes sense. But aside from that, we also have a couple more little details. We have in the bottom right, we have the 7:19, the time, which could be tonight. It could be at 7:19, although I don't know what time zone that would be. So maybe we're going to get something tonight. It could also be a date. It could be 19th of the 7th. That could be another clue to when we're going to get the trailer or the release date. Again, we've had this before. There's been a lot of dates that didn't turn out to be anything. But then also, it seems like the Daddy Longlegs date was correct, so it's entirely possible that this date is important, so mark it in your calendars. There's also the logo at the top, which looks like an old Playtime Co logo, which also could be a 7. Maybe 7 could be relevant. And then there's also G51 down in the bottom left, which could be something. It could be nothing. It could be Giant 51. It could be Game 51. It could be anything, or it could be nothing. So these are the mostly interesting things I've seen on this image. I really do believe this is setting up the final ARG before we get the trailer. Again, this would mirror exactly what happened in chapter 2. We got the CCTV ARG, then we got the final little tease with the NFTs, and then we got the actual reveal and the trailer for chapter 2 with the reveal of Mommy Longlegs. So it seems like to me this is the final tease, the final ARG before we are going to get the reveal of the antagonist, or at least the trailer for chapter 3. And I'm very, very excited. And if you are too, make sure you subscribe, because there's going to be plenty of chapter 3 content on the channel in the future. So there we go. These are pretty much all the interesting things. There is one other. There is this wave at the top. Some people seem to think it's a sound wave. My friend Pixelicious managed to get a sound file from it. I'll play the sound file now, but I can't really... I've run it through the spectrogram and it didn't really show anything. So at the moment, I'm just going to say that this is unsolved. It could just be a scratch in the screen. It could be something important. We don't know yet, but here you go. It's there. So that's today's over analysis of a simple picture. Like I say, I'm pretty sure we're going to get something very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.